Hi, Dr. Barbara Johnson here. Today, I want to talk about something I hear almost every day in my practice. Why am I struggling to reach my goals? Well, it may not be what you think. So consider how many goals you've set over the years. Whether they're professional, athletic, or personal, you likely had a vision or a strategy to reach these goals, but somehow you get derailed and just can't seem to get back on track. Well, you're not alone. In fact, 91% of people have already given up their New Year's resolution by March. So think about how many of your goals you've actually achieved. So while there's no shortage of advice on habit formation, discipline, and motivation, there is one overlooked factor that is essential for success: energy. The ability to execute on your goals is not just about willpower or mindset, it is also about physiology. Specifically, whether or not your brain and body have the cellular energy required to sustain motivation, focus, and action. So if your mitochondria are not functioning optimally, your brain may simply not have enough energy to drive behavior change, make decisions, or maintain sustained effort towards your goals. You know, your brain is one of the highest consumers of energy in the body. Although it comprises only about 2% of body weight, it requires a staggering 25% of total energy production. And this is so important because everything from decision making, problem solving, motivation, and focus relies on sufficient ATP production, which is the energy currency of the cell. So if your energy is low, your body will prioritize basic survival functions over higher cognitive processes, such as goal setting, creativity, and strategic thinking. And this means that if you are constantly feeling unmotivated, struggling to follow through, or experiencing mental fatigue, the problem is not necessarily in your mindset, but in your mitochondria. So what damages the mitochondria? Well, in today's modern world, almost everything in our environment negatively impacts mitochondrial function. So I'm going to list a few things that can impact your mitochondria. So 1, antibiotics and certain medications. 2, metabolic disorders such as obesity and diabetes. 3, processed foods and inflammatory diets. 4, chronic infections and gut issues. 5, aging itself because of an accumulation of oxidative stress. 6, too much or too little exercise. 7, nutritional deficiencies can actually impair the function of the mitochondria, and lack of quality sleep. But the biggest and most damaging factor affecting mitochondrial health is chronic stress. Chronic stress is the silent saboteur of goal achievement. It is linked to 90% of all chronic diseases, and in the last 50 to 75 years, the prevalence of chronic illness has skyrocketed. So stress can come in 3 major forms. There's physical stress, which is what we see with inflammation, infections, injury, poor sleep, or even overtraining. There's environmental stress, which comes from toxins, poor diet, air pollution, and chemical exposures. And then there's psychosocial stress. This is negative thoughts, self-doubt, emotional trauma, financial and workplace stress. And while all these stressors may seem different, the body perceives them in exactly the same way. Each of them activates the hypothalamic, pituitary, and adrenal axis, otherwise known as the HPA axis, and this regulates the release of cortisol. So simply sending yourself a negative message is perceived as danger, which activates the stress response. So when stress is prolonged, cortisol remains elevated. And this can lead to downregulation of your glucocorticoid receptors. And then this creates a cycle of chronic inflammation, immune dysregulation, and mitochondrial dysfunction, which robs the body of vital energy and leaves you feeling fatigued, unmotivated, and unable to focus. When cortisol remains elevated for too long, it has devastating effects on nearly every system in the body. It can increase blood sugar, leading to insulin resistance. 2, it breaks down muscle tissue, making it harder to maintain strength and a good metabolism. 3, increases intestinal permeability, which leads to leaky gut, and this can contribute to food sensitivities and immune dysfunction. 4 can trigger neuroinflammation, which impairs focus, memory, and motivation. 5 disrupts neurotransmitters, and this can reduce dopamine, which is your drive and motivation, and serotonin, which is known for confidence and optimism. It can also prevent restful sleep, and this can lead to further mitochondrial damage and cognitive decline. Chronic cortisol elevation causes a shift in energy allocation. Instead of providing energy for your brain for focus, goal setting, and execution, your body directs energy toward basic survival functions to keep you alive, such as regulating blood pressure, keeping your heart beating, and supporting immune function. So simply put, when energy is scarce, your body prioritizes survival over success. So how do you restore mitochondrial function and regain your motivation? First, stop blaming yourself for lack of willpower. Consider that your biology may be working against you. So the key to regaining motivation, focus, and resilience lies in reducing stressors, restoring mitochondrial health, and healing underlying tissue damage. So here's how to do it. 1, reduce environmental stress. Eat whole organic foods. Processed foods and artificial additives impair mitochondrial function. You want to eliminate exposures to environmental toxins. Now, these are everywhere, so it is important to reduce what we can. So look at your personal care products, water, plastics, household cleaners. These are a major burden on mitochondrial health. And there's a website that I love called ewg.org that can actually assess toxin exposure in these personal care and household products. You also want to manage psychosocial stress. Understand that thoughts impact your physiology. Your body responds to negative thoughts the same way it does to physical threats. So make it a point to practice mindfulness, gratitude, and meditation on a daily basis. These techniques help regulate the HPA axis and lower cortisol levels. You also want to reframe stress. So studies, including those by Nobel laureate Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, shows that it's not just the stress itself, but your interpretation of stress that determines its effects on health and longevity. And then 3, heal the physical stress and cellular damage. So addressing the mitochondrial dysfunction early is so important because cellular damage starts years before symptoms appear. You want to support gut health because chronic stress weakens gut integrity, causing malabsorption as well as systemic inflammation. We want to optimize hormone balance. Cortisol imbalances disrupts the entire endocrine system, and this affects metabolism, sleep, and energy. So it's so important to get comprehensive testing. And while there is no single test for healing, there is advanced functional cellular medicine labs that can reveal hidden imbalances in your biochemistry and gut function. So consider that if you've been struggling to reach your goals, despite your best efforts, it's time to shift your focus from psychology to physiology. Motivation is not just about mental discipline. It's also about whether your brain and body have the energy to sustain high-level function. So by addressing mitochondrial health, managing stress, and supporting cellular repair, you can restore your body's natural drive, focus, and ability to achieve success. Your goals are not out of reach. Your body just needs the right energy to execute them. So wishing you health, happiness, and peace.